Oh, wow. You're still playing off that joke.
I know, it's still funny.
David, and he's 5'9".
I thought you were 5'11".
No. Good to see you, sir.
Good. Cheers to you.
Cheers, man.
Day 2 of our podcast, Hairy Knuckle.
If we had one viewer that like saw both episodes and they're waiting for, just imagine that. We were talking about maybe some guy in India.
Yeah.
That's just kind of like waiting.
Yeah.
That's because nobody else is watching.
I hope we have a bigger market in India, honestly.
Yeah?
Yeah.
For what?
I don't know. I think it would be cool for this to take off somewhere else other than at home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah. I'm David, by the way.
Oh, wow. You're still playing off that joke.
I know, it's still funny.
David, and he's 5'9".
I thought you were 5'11".
No. 5'11" with high heels, maybe.
I'm DJ. This is David. So
yeah.
And I felt pretty bad last time I was. Hopefully, I don't kick this table over. I wasn't wearing my jacket, looking as dapper as David usually does. So I decided to bring mine down, but it turns out we're wearing almost the identical T-shirts. And that was not planned.
Not planned.
Well, I want to talk about. There's a lot of things I want to talk about. I want to talk about how this may unfold over time, and how I want us to be able to take this outside of your living room,
mm-hmm.
and us go to various locations and be able to talk to multiple people all over Utah.
Well, let's talk about what we hope this to become, right? So a lot of podcasts right now, you have people that specialize or are successful in a specific industry, or they're very well connected, whether they're entrepreneurs, whether they're athletes,
right.
They've done something in an industry, people find them interesting, and then they bring guests on and they talk about people that are niche to that specific industry that they were successful in, right?
Right.
Whereas us, I think that there are thousands and thousands of entrepreneurs that are in the process of starting their businesses. And so they're not quite successful yet.
Right.
Just like us, we're launching Auras. We have our other businesses, but Aura is not something that either of us have done right before. Neither of us have experience in it. And so I think what I want this to become, what I want the Hairy Knuckle Podcast to become, is just the dirty process of starting something like a new business.
Right.
And us,
I want to hear a lot of failures.
Yeah.
Yeah. I want to hear from people that have actually failed and why they failed.
Right.
And what they learned.
Right. So I want other people that are starting businesses or are interested in starting one to kind of join us through the whole journey, their own journey and ours as well, where we're going to provide, our experiences, things that we learned, things that we could have done better. DJ and I went to grad school together. We did a master's degree, and it was focused on, it was essentially an MBA, but it focused on entrepreneurs.
Correct.
And so we do have, and we had our own businesses. Some of them have failed. We started early on, and then some of them are starting to get traction. And
right. And we come from the corporate world.
Yeah.
I mean, our background is actually working for large companies.
Yeah.
Very large
do you
companies.
actually want to go through your background first, and then I can get into mine?
Yeah. I mean, I have my bachelor's degree is in construction management, and I worked in the engineering, procurement, and construction industry for the bulk of my experiences working for EPC firms. And I worked on small projects and large projects over $100 million. And then I got into the renewables industry and operated a wind farm with a team I liked in Idaho. And yeah, so that's kind of, we can go into detail at some other point, but that's just kind of my background.
Yeah. And with me, I primarily worked as a financial analyst. I did a bachelor's in economics, then I did one in political science. I wanted to go to law school.
Right.
And then I worked at the district court there in Summit County. Great people up there, by the way. And I clerked for one of the judges. And just in speaking with the attorneys and the judge, I didn't think it was, they didn't think it was the greatest idea because, the attorneys, a lot of the time, it's such a saturated market. A lot of these people work their asses off, and they don't make incredible money. And it's a very high stress environment. So I decided to do business instead. So yeah, I worked as a financial analyst, initially for an aerospace company doing, as a logistics analyst. And then I moved into, high net worth lending, working for a big bank. I did that for a few years. And I recently, worked for another, aerospace company in the communication sector. But my passion has always been starting my own business, working for myself, and trying to solve problems and help people along the way. That's really what we want to do. So that's something I've just been super passionate about. And I think, with Aura, I've always started businesses because I'm trying to solve something in my own life. I've never just started one because I've researched and like, oh, we could do this better, or I could do this better.
Right.
There's a gap in the market. I feel like those aren't really entrepreneurs. I think they're businessmen. Let's talk about, there's a differentiation between an entrepreneur in my book and somebody that's a businessman, right? If you're importing rugs, right? If you see that there's a lack of, Persian rugs in the Salt Lake City market, and you just start importing rugs from, Iran or China or something, because you want to take that market, you want to capture that market. I feel like you're not an entrepreneur, right? Entrepreneurs create something,
right?
They create it typically out of their own passion. It's typically a passion project, where they invent something new, they create something new, they create a new system, a new service, a new product.
What happens if the the person who's importing the rugs, though, has a true passion for Persian rugs?
Right, but they would innovate in that area then, right?
Yeah,
they wouldn't just import rugs, right? Somebody that starts a quickie mart, right? That and they work for themselves. I wouldn't call that an entrepreneur. Or somebody that's in the real estate business,
right?
Where you start your own real estate company and you're doing something that everybody else knows what you're doing. Entrepreneurship is something where,
I mean,
right?
Maybe, yeah. What if they're really passionate about it, though? I think passion kind of like plays into it.
It's not only passion; it's
an innovation. If you're innovating, like, let's say you're into real estate and you figure out there's a niche there and a way of doing, being a real estate agent or whatever it is, that you can actually reduce costs and improve your bottom line. I think that's a form of entrepreneurship.
It could be. So, for example, like in real estate market, Homey, that's entrepreneurship.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Right? They innovated in that.
I don't know
space.
if they're doing great right now, but yeah.
Right, but they innovated in that space. They an entirely different way of purchasing a home, right? Where you don't have to deal with the realtors themselves. That's entrepreneurship, because you understand this, that entrepreneurship, there is no, and I think this is what differentiates entrepreneurship from starting a business, is there's no clear cut line on what to do.
Right.
It's literally chaos, and you have to navigate the space and you have to figure it out. So when you develop something new, like with Helix, or when I'm developing, an innovative way to dispense electrolytes, personalized electrolyte shots for people, there's no other product that's currently doing that. There are electrolyte shots, there's electrolyte powders, but the entire delivery mechanism, and the way that they're actually taking it and how it's personalized is completely different, right? You have to navigate that space. There's nothing I can look at and be like, oh, they're doing it this way. I'm going to copy this from them, this from them, this from them, and then do it this way. But with, like, for example, real estate, there's a textbook way of doing things.
Yeah.
Right.
And heavily regulated.
Yeah. So it's the same thing. Like you want to be a doctor or you want to be a lawyer. There's a textbook way of doing things. You study for the LSAT, right? You take primarily courses in, political science. That would be most beneficial. Or it could be anything, so you get a bachelor's degree, you study for the LSAT, you sit for the LSAT, and then you apply to law schools. And then once you go through law school, you sit for the bar exam. And then once that's the whole trajectory of becoming a lawyer. Trajectory of being an entrepreneur it's literally fucking chaos.
It's a mess.
It's messy.
You don't know what the hell you're doing. You're starting from ground zero.
Importing rugs is not messy. We all know the process of doing it, but what you've identified is something in the marketplace that doesn't exist and that people actually want it. So I don't know. Maybe it's just my way of saying that. Oh,
no, I can agree with that.
Yeah.
I can see that.
And I don't think entrepreneurs are better than people that are businessmen, but I think that it's something that's different. And I think that people kind of confuse the two. I just think they're different things.
Yeah. What's also interesting about a lot of those like new products or new brands that come out, for a long time, they can fly under the radar. Nobody really notices them until something big takes off, and then the product just skyrockets.
Right.
I think it's the guy who started Paul Mitchell. I mean, I think he was homeless twice.
Yeah.
And then he was really passionate about hair products, apparently.
Yeah.
Paul Mitchell. And then the other thing he was really passionate about was Patron.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
right.
Yeah, those are huge.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. So I think what our first episode focused on, I think we went off on a little bit of a tangent talking about some of the things that entrepreneurs focus on mistakenly in the beginning, right?
Right.
And which they shouldn't be. And I think I kind of want to build upon that, because if you watch the first episode, we talked a lot about how entrepreneurs focus on, and it's the very exciting part, right? Because it feels like you're doing something where, okay, you have an idea, right? You have a product idea, let's say, and you immediately start focusing on what the logo is going to look like, or what the website's going to look like, what the colors are going to be, let's buy t-shirts for the company. So you immediately, because that feels like you're doing something. It really does. It feels like development.
Yeah.
In the eyes of somebody that doesn't quite understand that that's not development.
Mm-hmm.
And this is why the majority of entrepreneurs fail, right? The majority of these startups fail is they focus on these types of things. And I kind of want to build upon that and talk about some of the mistakes people initially make and some of the things that they actually should be focusing on. Let's talk about that. I mean, what mistakes did you make when you first started Sawtooth? Well, let's talk about.
Yeah. Well, for the biggest mistake I think I made was, first I spent too much time on developing and trying to improve the product, than putting out an MVP as quickly as possible.
You didn't put an MVP out as quickly as possible.
No, I didn't.
Right.
And so I think I was like developing it for probably 2 or 3 years before I had what I felt like was a good MVP, and which stands for minimum viable product.
Yeah. I mean, let's just kind of talk about that for a little bit.
Yeah.
Why do people not initially want to release something to the world where, I mean, think about this. You're releasing a product that is not perfected.
Right.
Where you're capable of being humiliated.
Yeah.
You're very vulnerable.
Well,
you're open to criticism, right? These are some of the reasons people do not release an MVP, because initially we're all perfectionists.
I think potentially, yeah. Okay. But I think a lot of people put too much emphasis on it. Oh, if I fail, everybody will know. Well, think about, I mean, nothing comes to mind about somebody who tried something and failed. I've never thought, oh, well, they're an idiot.
Right.
I've always thought, well, good for them. They fucking tried. You know what I mean? And
right. So those are some of the reasons, right? Is you're putting yourself in a very vulnerable situation.
You're afraid.
Yeah.
Fundamentally, you're afraid.
Yeah. And you really, I think we talked about this before, where to be an entrepreneur and say, hey, I have this idea, I'm going to bring it to the world and people are going to buy it. It's a pretty arrogant statement. You have to be kind of, I think you talked about kind of like a narcissist in a way.
Yeah. Well, I guess yeah. I mean,
you have to a little bit. You have to have a little bit of narcissism, a little bit of overconfidence,
or are you? I don't know. I mean, you could also just believe in the product and go, yeah, well, I needed this product. That's why I developed the tonneau I did.
Yeah, but your perception of what the product is this perfected product. So
right.
Putting out something initially and showing people that that's held together by duct tape, that's terrifying.
It is terrible.
And this is why, like you said, that initial step, it took you much longer to produce the product than it would have, right?
Yeah, well, right. I mean,
you could have released something that was so dirty, but got the point across. But we never focused on that. So I think of these episodes, these first few episodes, I want to focus on the spirit of entrepreneurship, where it's not organized. There's not too much thought put into it. It's first identifying the product or idea, and then next identifying if there's a market for it. If
Right.
those two things, if you can have a clear-cut idea of what the product is, and then you can identify that, hey, there's actually a market for it, there's a want for this, and we can go through some of the things that entrepreneurs can do to figure out whether there's a market, there's actually customers that will purchase what you're thinking about.
Right.
We can kind of go through those, but it's the fact that don't focus too much on having everything be so perfect. Get the dirtiest logo, your little brother that's good on Microsoft Paint, whatever, like, just get it out there. Just register your business, because we know how important that is.
Yeah, you only have to register.
Yeah. But initially you don't have to. I mean, eventually, that's not
Yeah, but
important. It's not important to register your business, as it's not important to initially like get a patent out.
Yeah, not initially, but you should, like, if you're going to release a product, you should, within a year, I think that's the legal requirement, that you, don't quote me if I'm wrong, but I think that's my understanding, is within a year of the product becoming public knowledge,
right,
you have to have a patent pending. You have to submit your patent documents.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I spoke to one of my colleagues at the big bank that I worked at, and he said he had this great idea. So he knew that I was starting a business and I was getting into grad school for that program. And I remember having a beer with him, and I asked him, so what's the idea? His name was Ryan. And he said, I don't, and this is somebody that I've known for years. And he said, you know what? I don't have a patent on it yet. I don't feel comfortable talking about it.
Oh, no.
And I just looked at him like, you have no fucking clue what you're talking about. If that's your perception, that thing is never going to get off the ground. Like, most people don't have the time of day to sit here and just take your ideas and make it their own. Like, nobody's going to do that, especially somebody that started a business before.
Yeah, most people don't care.
Most people don't care.
Yeah.
Because it's very difficult, like, take somebody's idea and create an entire company out of it.
Right.
So you need to get your idea out. That's fine.
I mean, I wouldn't take it to your competition initially.
No,
I would never share it with them, but to talk to a potential user that, or somebody that, I don't know.
You don't have to get on Facebook and announce to the world. You don't want to do that. You want to, for the most part, keep it to yourself. But friends and close family, or people that have experience with entrepreneurship, you want to really flesh out your idea, get criticism, and don't worry about patents. Don't worry about patents that first year developing it. You really shouldn't.
I wouldn't worry about patents within the first 6 months.
Unless it's something like highly, highly technical. For the most part, what you're doing, if a company wanted to steal your idea, because you have to recognize that patents are a negative, right? So
they can be,
yeah. So if a company,
because you're disclosing you're disclosing the product.
Yeah, it's not a positive right. Meaning if you have a patent and another company takes your idea, right?
Yep. Then you have to enforce it.
You have to enforce it. That's a negative right. You have to enforce it.
That costs money.
Yeah. It's not as if time. It's not as if the court's going to say, "Oh wait, you just took that person's idea," and the judge slams down his hammer and says, "You need to stop taking his." No, that's not how it works.
Litigation takes years.
Yeah, it takes. You have to have the resources and the money to fight this company, to defend your utility patent. If most people don't understand that, they're like, "Nope, I need to get a patent first."
Yeah, there's no like police.
That's not how
police
works,
floating around that.
Yeah. So don't focus on patents. Don't focus on logos and colors and branding and websites.
Get the product out there.
Yeah.
Get feedback.
Well, initially, first find out. If there's a market for what you're doing.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And how do we do that?
I mean, there's for me, I had no idea. So I invented this like expandable truck bed cover tonneau because I needed it. Turns out nobody was making it. And everybody else, all the other tonneau manufacturers would void their warranty if anything came into contact with it. And I needed something that would stretch over and secure big loads. Anyway, so I made it and I used it because I needed it to go camping and such. And I started to think, well, if I'm one person that needs this, there's got to be more than just me.
Yeah.
And then I started to do some research into the industry. Turns out there's over, I think it's something like over 1 million of those sold in the United States every year.
Right.
So it's a fairly big industry, you know. I think between, you know, the hard caps and the flat tonneaus, and ours fits in between both of those.
Right.
Does both of those. It's like a 1.5, no, maybe it's $1.3 billion a year industry, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Truck bed covers.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Who would have thought?
Who would have thought?
Right. So you did some research initially and you found that the market size is big, that there's a want in the market.
Yep.
That there
I just went to a trade, there's a industry trade show, the SEMA show. They put it on every year in Vegas, and they publish a lot of information on the markets for all sorts of automotive accessories. And that's where I got my information from. And yeah.
Right.
And it was I found it within like 3 days of looking, you know,
right.
and it's probably a total of hour of research online.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. No,
so,
I think that's important. So
knowing what the market size.
Yeah.
I mean, you have like the Facebooks of the world, and they made their own market, right? Mm-hmm. I mean,
yeah.
I guess there was like MySpace before that, right? But
right. Yeah.
But they basically created an entire industry.
Right. Yeah.
Or blew it up. So, depending on what you're developing.
Yeah.
Yeah. It depends on.
Yeah.
But that's a unicorn, right?
Right. Right. So yeah, I think those really are the lessons. Don't get into development paralysis. If you have an idea and you want to start a business, do some research, see if it's a viable business, look at the market size. And then don't focus on those things that we talked about. Just get into it. Like
Just
first.
Do it.
Just do it head first. If you work a full-time job, work on it in the evenings or the weekends.
Right.
But get into it. Just get your hands dirty. Put duct tape over that motherfucker. Like, get it out there. Get feedback from people. Contact people in the industry that have experience. Get feedback. That's literally what you want to do. Is the initial phase should be this dirty phase where you're trying to determine if you want to invest your time and if the opportunity cost is right, where focusing on this, you think in the long term is going to be more beneficial than working your 9 to 5 and advancing your career, then you take the dip. Then do it, right? Work on the weekends, and slowly, when you can get your life in a position where you can focus more and more on the business and eventually let go of your job. That's what you should be doing. But I'm totally part of the belief that if you don't have the initial capital and you're still trying to explore the idea, it's still okay to work your job. It really is.
Yeah, I could see.
And
that.
I did that. I've always did that.
I've done that
until recently.
Yeah,
until recently, I've always done that.
I haven't always done that, but initially I've done that.
Yeah.
I mean, my first unit was made out of wood and a fabric I found.
Yeah. Yeah.
To make it work, and it's way different now. It's totally, we have our own extrusions and dyes and all sorts of tooling that we have.
Yeah.
My case is a little unique. I don't know if it's unique, but I developed the product and then started selling it, started making it here.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a lot of advice that I should take it overseas. And I never listened to that advice.
Yeah.
I mean, Paul Brown said that to me. And I should have listened to him on that. Yeah. I should have just had it made overseas, because Utah is we're in Utah, and Utah has such a low employment rate.
Yeah.
Or a low unemployment rate, I should say.
Yeah.
That it's hard to find people here.
Yeah. Well, I think we'll get into that a little bit more.
Yeah.
That's production. That comes a little bit later. But I think we want to
But
focus.
I would have been years ahead had I just taken it
Yeah.
overseas from day one.
That's another mistake that I think we'll talk about, because it's a big one. It's a long conversation.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I wanted to make we're making them now in Utah.
Yeah.
I wanted to see if I can make it here,
right,
and make it viable. And we've made money, but our product is expensive now.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's made by Americans.
Right. Right.
So,
yeah.
For whatever that's worth.
What do you think about having the conversation be initially, and we can get feedback from people, the one guy in India that's watching us right now, let us know if you kind of like the focus on entrepreneurship, or are more of our conversation on dating and how we're navigating that space, relationships, and how that relates to us developing Aura AI, which is our dating app that we're releasing, that we're working on. So yeah, if anybody's watching, give us
for our two
give us
viewers.
Feedback. Give us feedback on that. But yeah, let's kind of shift the conversation to that. Talk a little bit more about dating and relationships, and because that's super. That's a big part of what we're doing, right?
Yeah,
it's a massive part of what we're doing with Aura
AI. I think being prepared to date, and not just dating to date or hookup culture, whatever it is. I think you need to mentally prepare yourself, emotionally, spiritually, physically, to enter a relationship or to consider dating. Do you know what I mean?
What do you mean?
I look back before I got married, I should have been better prepared, and I think I would have done things differently that would have allowed me to have a successful marriage.
Yeah.
And I know, I mean, I was married at 25, 26. Yeah, 26. Yeah.
Okay.
So, I think we want to talk about that at some point. We don't have to dive into it today, but
yeah, no,
I think preparing oneself to actually, I mean, how do you get experience unless you get dating? So what comes first? Maybe you just have to, it's just a messy process.
I don't really agree with that. I don't think that, and I think that's a misconception. That's a lot of red pill stuff. And I don't like that.
What do you mean?
I don't agree with the concept that men and women need to date, need to go through a bunch of different people before they can finally know the kind of person they want to be with. I don't believe in that.
No, I agree with that. I agree with that to an extent. Yes.
I think that's just something that's perpetuated right now in our culture. Whereas, go through as many people, and there's this abundance mentality that both sides have.
Oh,
and I think it's mostly perpetuated on the women right now. Is fuck the guy, right? He was late in picking you up, or he didn't text back within an hour. Fuck him. There's so many other dudes. Fuck him. They have this abundance mentality where a lot of good guys are being left in the dust because women know, and they actually do. They do have a lot of other guys that are waiting on the sidelines because it's so easy to find them with social media.
Right.
Even women that are, and I don't mean to be judgmental, but mediocre, right?
What are?
Mediocre.
Who are?
Women. Physically, the appearance.
Oh, that's some of them, yeah.
Yeah, that are mediocre have a lot of men waiting for them and the potential to be with them. And so why would they put up with, trivial issues with the man that they're dating when there's so many other men that they can be? And they have this abundance mentality. I just don't agree with that.
Well,
I think it's counterintuitive.
I mean, I think
counterproductive.
I think a lot of men just want to smash, right? And that's all they're going through as many women as they possibly can. There's a lot of men like that.
I think when you're in your early 20s, that's what you want to do. And you should, for the most part. But I think as men get older, and we're experiencing this, once you start hitting 30 in your 30s or your late 20s, for men at least, I don't think that men want that anymore. I think that that's another lie that's perpetuated, is that men just want to sleep with as many women as possible. Men, there's a loneliness epidemic right now with men. Men want connection.
I think it's both men and women.
I know, both of them. Men want connection right now.
Yeah.
They want relationships. They want feminine women.
Mm-hmm.
But the problem is, the reason that they're sleeping around is because there are very few feminine women out there for them to date and for them to be secure and be at peace. And so the narrative that they're getting and the way the society is kind of set up right now is, yeah, that's smash culture, because the people that they're meeting are the smash types. Like, you're not getting this. If men are encountered with this,
well, they're on Tinder. That's the most. That's
exactly
the biggest dating app in the world.
If they're encountered with this feminine woman that completes them, right, and they're at peace, and this woman is supporting them and allowing them to lead the relationship, making them feel like a man, sort of accenting their masculine qualities, where she's expressing her feminine qualities. I don't think men treat women like that as a smash object, like you were saying. I don't think that happens, regardless of you're 28 or you're 35 or you're 40. I don't think so. It's just that there are very few women like that out there. That really is the problem.
I think modern culture has, I think they've lied to both men and women to an extent. I don't know of a lot of women that have actually done everything that men do or act like men are happy being that way. I don't think they're, and who's to say they're like gender norms. I get that, but I don't think women like to be competing against men in the workplace. I don't think that's where
I think we're going a little off topic.
I know, but
let's focus, because I really want to focus on that right now.
Okay.
Like, talking about like that point right there is so important. The fact that when you said about a lot of men just want to smash, right?
Yeah.
That's just something that I hear a lot. And I think there's a small group of men that do. There is.
So they're just,
absolutely there is. The top 5% of Tinder, those men, absolutely
are getting like 80% of the women.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Those ones are the ones that are doing that. Yeah. And they're not going to stop. But they don't speak for the rest of us.
So the 95% of the rest of the men are actually wanting long-term relationships. And,
they are.
And
absolutely.
It's the 5% that are ruining it for 80%.
The 10% at the top, the 10% or whatever.
Let's just say it's 10%.
But they're getting most of the women.
Maybe. Yeah.
And so the experience of most of the women is, if they're dating that top 10% kind of guy, they have this skewed perspective on the rest of us, right? On the rest of the guys that actually want a meaningful relationship with a woman.
How do you think that, how do you solve for that?
That's a good question. No, how do you solve for that? I think the narrative in society, at least American society, whether you look at Hollywood, the movies that are being perpetuated, whether you look at music.
I think Hollywood's a big one.
Yeah, Hollywood. If you look at music, if you look at pop culture, if you look at who society deemed as important, right? Social media influencers, things like that.
Right.
That narrative that women are like men and they should act like men, and display masculine qualities like, focus on their career and focus on being argumentative and looking for power and things like that. That whole narrative is really being perpetuated. Like, it's very strong right now. And so I think one of the big things is people, realizing that there's something there's a narrative that's being forced onto us. And it's difficult. I think a lot of these women, it's not their fault. They're simply following the narrative that's being given to them, right? That sexualizing yourself online is okay. Like, we see this, like, it's just.
I don't think women that. Yeah, keep going. I want to hear about this.
Yeah. So I think that whole narrative is just really being pushed on these women, like sexualize yourself, like OnlyFans. It's not there's never a conversation of shame. Like shame is gone.
Yeah.
Like you look at the
It's You Go
awards.
Girl or whatever. Yeah.
You look at the music awards or the film awards.
Oh yeah, where you got John Cena out there.
Yeah. Like nudity is completely okay, guys. Like sexualizing yourself and putting yourself out. I mean, Cardi B and like, you know what I mean? Like these are
hypersexualized.
Yeah. You look at the Kardashians. These are people that are idolized in our society. Like that entire culture is really being espoused and it's being promoted. And so it's okay to have an OnlyFans. It's okay to have half naked pictures on Instagram of yourself, and that's really being promoted. And women, it's not their fault. Like that's what society as society we're saying that is okay right now. But I think
it's like with certain women that crossing that line and then hypersexualizing yourself, they're being encouraged to do it.
Yeah.
And it's like, this is your final hurdle that before you're fully liberated. I'm like,
right.
What? How is being hypersexualized liberation? Like, I can understand you should be like with your spouse or your girlfriend or whatever,
right?
Feeling free to be sexual with that person, you know what I mean? And free, but like publicly freeing yourself. I mean, what does that serve?
So I read a crazy stat the other day. Let me read it to you. So among 1,174 male streamers, they found 99.4% not sexualized. Like of those streamers, they didn't sexualize themselves. 0.43% sexualized and 0.17% hypersexualized. Right?
Okay.
Among 745 female streamers, they found 22.28% not sexualized.
Oh shit.
22%. That's it.
That's not sexualized.
That's not sexualized.
I don't know.
I don't know why that's.
Damn.
And then they found out of that same 22. I don't know why this is.
Oh, that's crazy. That's nuts.
25.5% sexualized and 52.25% hypersexualized. So that's close to 70. That's over 75%, close to 76% sexualized or hypersexualized themselves.
Jesus, that's terrible.
That's close to 80%. That's insane. That's
insane.
because there's benefit in it. That narrative is really being pushed on us, and there's benefit to it.
Well, are they doing that because they get the attention of the boys?
Yeah, because attention is their currency, just like success.
You're right.
Attention is it's really their currency,
like
in having importance. Whereas men, their currency is success.
But do they realize that? I don't think these women realize that they're drawing the wrong attention. Like, yeah, you may be good to look at or fun to watch or whatever, but any man worth their salt, I don't think they would actually want to have a long-term relationship with this individual.
No, I think with men,
certainly not have children with, like raise.
No, but they give them the intention. Mm-hmm. That's a crazy dynamic. It's such a crazy dynamic. Like you have these men giving these women the attention, knowing that it doesn't benefit them in any way, and these women just freely giving it and being successful.
Kind of simping. That's where the simp term comes.
Yeah,
kind of comes into play, right?
It's a very weird dynamic.
Yeah.
Because I think that narrative plays upon a very important thing, and that's that men are we're very sexual beings, right? Like we love women. Men love beautiful women.
We're very visual beings. Yeah,
very visual beings. That's a better way to put it.
Yeah.
And men, they're really stimulated upon visually, and so this narrative, it's like as if it knows that, and then women are being rewarded when they do that when they give that to men,
right?
And then men just want more and more and more of it. So it's just pornification of society. And so Tinder fits in incredibly into that narrative, because if there's a pornification of society, swipe culture just fits in perfectly. You're pulling up your app, you're setting your radius within 25 miles to people that are around you, and you're just looking visually at people that you'd sleep with or you wouldn't sleep with. Isn't that amazing? Like that's literally.
Well, and these girls are leading with like bikini pics or whatever.
Yeah,
Yeah. And it's like, damn,
exactly.
it's like, geez, where did,
And it's an incredible dynamic right now. But with Aura, we're doing things entirely different. We're trying to create a system of bringing two people together, the opposite sex, that rests outside of that dynamic, of that narrative.
rest
That's
on
literally-
culture or
exactly.
character.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of different things we
Yeah,
can do
yeah.
into it, but
But
we're trying to create something outside of that narrative, completely outside of it, and hopefully, I mean, we're hoping that people actually are outside of that want to be
We get
outside of that narrative. Yeah,
the 6 users in India.
yeah, yeah. We're not launching in India initially, but
We'll be there.
but I
eventually.
think there is that narrative is kind of swinging the other way. I think.
Yeah, I think so. I think people are tired of it.
Yeah. Since the pandemic, since 2019 up until 2023, that narrative was very, very strong. 2024, I think people are swinging. The pendulum is swinging the other way.
Yeah.
And there are signs of that. For example, one of our colleagues in grad school works for a company called Halo. And that's a prayer app, right? That was the number one downloaded app just this last month.
Yeah.
Why? So it looks like Christian values are on the rise again. If that's the number one downloaded app on Apple and on Android, then that's a small sign, an indicator that people want something that's wholesome. They want religious values back in their life, and I think that's a great indicator.
Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah.
Uh,
Sorry, I'm talking too much.
No, you're great. You're great. No, I'm trying to caffeinate more to catch up with you.
Caffeinate more?
Yeah.
You like coffee as much as I do?
This is my third cup. This is extra caffeinated, by the way.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
I think I'm feeling it a little bit. I can only do like one cup.
You're gonna have coffee, a heart murmur at the end of this.
Yeah, I'm one of those dudes that just can do one and then that's it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Then I'm done with coffee for the day. I love the taste.
Yeah. So,
what else has been on your mind?
Man,
you got a lot of stress going on right now.
I got a ton of stress. I don't know if we want to go into all of it right now, but
yeah, whatever you feel comfortable going to. Not with regard to business, but I think we're on a topic of dating relationships.
Well, I want to talk about business a little bit. So, you
want to go back to business?
Yeah, can we do that? Yeah, I'd like to do that.
Let's do it.
So I've been vetting a few manufacturers overseas. I had a great call with one last night. And then I've got another one after this. I'm going to have another call this evening. And the one, it's kind of been I've started the process over a year ago, trying to find an overseas manufacturer that could do this. And I'm frustrated that it is taking this long to do.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I thought this would be like a 3-month thing and I'd be done. And it kind of reminds me of a quote I heard I think it was Sycax, the guy, Orion Taraban, great guy. I don't know him personally, but I like what he has to say. But he talks about, whatever you plan to do, you should plan on it taking 3 to 4 times as long as you initially plan to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say that's the same with Sawtooth. I would say that
you hear that, everyone? It takes typically from what you perceive how long something is going to take when you're starting a business. Typically, it takes 3 to 4 times than what you anticipated.
Yeah, right. I mean, even my first home,
mm-hmm.
We bought a dilapidated house and gutted it, and put in everything new. And I thought that would be 3 months tops. And no, we were living in it for a portion of the time while I was still finishing out the house. It took over a year.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it saved a lot of money, and it allowed us to move into the house that we're in now, over a few iterations of homes. So, I mean, that worked out in our benefit, but everything takes way longer than you plan,
Exactly. So with production, What did you do wrong? What did you do wrong? What would you do differently?
I would have started initially looking overseas. That's the first thing I would have done.
Okay. So
after I had the first MVP, which I was kind of there, but I mean, I could have 2020, I could have been producing these
so do you think,
overseas, but then
Yeah.
that was COVID and everything.
Yeah.
I think I'd probably still be maybe, I don't know. I could.
So on a product that you get out there, we talked about quick and dirty, get it out there, right? MVP. Don't you think there are some advantages of producing small quantities here locally where you have eyes on the design?
I think initially you should do that. Like you should
That's what you did, right?
Well, unless you find a good supplier that I don't know. Let me back up. I think I may be ahead if I would have just relied on a third-party supplier somewhere else to do this
Initially.
Yeah.
Because you made a lot of initial tweaks and changes.
Oh, I made a ton. I'm still making changes right now.
But do you think you would have had that sort of close interface if you would have had, if the design would have been done overseas?
Well, I mean, let's say I was working with the Chinese firm overseas, right? And from day one, found somebody I could paper up.
That's idealistic though, right? If you would have, a lot of the times it's hard.
I know it is. Yeah, very hard. Had a non-disclosure agreement, all that in place.
So you taking the chance in finding that manufacturer that would do the design and tweak your product, because there are a lot of things that can come up, right? Design flaws and things like that.
But I don't know. I've also heard of, and I don't have experience with this necessarily, but I've heard that a lot of the overseas manufacturers, they're good about replicating what you've already done, but they're not good about improving it, the next iteration of that same product, like making improvements for it.
Yeah, you would have to do a lot of that.
Yeah. I think that would still come from me. I don't know.
So I think it would take you making a few trips there and having eyes on the product.
Or have you give them the drawings of what changes you need to have made. And then they'll send you an updated version of that product with those changes. So it could have been quicker. I don't know.
So having a manufacturer that has engineering capabilities, design and engineering capabilities for essentially a product development team that can help you really refine your product. Because that first year, V1 of every fucking product, it's never good.
No.
V1, like that MVP is never good.
No,
it's.
I mean, I got lucky. I have like my first year. I think our first year producing tonneaus was like terrible, but I still have customers that are like, "I love this thing." I'm like, "Awesome,
right,
great."
So I guess the trade-off is if you're doing your initial order, should be a small quantity order, right?
Yeah.
That's because most of us don't have the capital for a large initial order,
right?
And because V1, that MVP, is going to have a lot of issues. If it's something that's electronic, you're going to have a lot of bugs. If it's something like yours that's more mechanical, you're going to have flaws, right?
Yeah.
And you don't want to have that big of an order where you have a major flaw or bug that's discovered and every single customer is returning, because that's a nightmare scenario.
Yeah.
Everybody. And I think that you really need to do your due diligence, get a small batch order, send them out, get feedback from customers, and you can sort of make those iterations with the production manufacturing team overseas, making those changes for you. Because I guess what you'd have to do and what you did is you'd have to hire, if you wanted to redesign your product and account for those initial flaws, you'd have to design engineering. You have to hire people here, and they're a lot more expensive than overseas.
Yeah, but you can also. I mean, we use the same engineer, right?
Yeah. But it was expensive.
It was, but it could have been more. Well, I mean, you introduced me to this engineer, right? And I had one before.
Yeah.
But he was a mom and pop shop. It was just him and another guy, and so he was close. And, he had the expertise, and we didn't spend a grundle of money on it.
But it took time.
It did
took a lot of time.
Yeah, it did.
So I think the lesson here is, and I think I'm kind of understanding it now, where you're coming from, is if you have your manufacturer has in-house engineering capabilities, that's massive.
Yeah.
Because they're working together to have the factory there, they have the assembly line, they have the production capabilities. You want those two things to be very close.
Yeah.
Because if they're close, they can tweak it and then produce it fairly quickly.
On the fly.
But if they're not close,
Yeah.
if you're doing if you're trying to produce the small batch order in the beginning, locally, you're going to spend a lot more, and then there's going to be a disconnect between you doing the redesign and then conveying that to manufacturing and production for the next order overseas. So I guess the lesson is, if you can find a manufacturer that has in-house engineering capabilities for your first small batch order, and really try and refine the communication between them and utilize.
You have to have a great relationship with them.
Yeah, you have to develop that relationship.
Yep.
But it's better than doing it locally. That's really where we're coming down to.
Yeah.
There are risks to it.
Yeah, no, clearly they can knock you off.
But you're saying the trade-off is worth it.
Could be.
Yeah.
Yeah. Still evaluating.
Yeah.
But
yeah, the trade-off is worth it.
if I can drop my price $100, $200,
yeah. So that's what you regret.
Yeah. I need to be more competitive in this space. Fortunately, the customers see the value in it. And I mean, our product does way more. We're like the Swiss Army knife of truck bed covers.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And people see the value in that. But I also want to give them more bang for their buck.
Right.
And the fact is, it's just so hard to make anything here in Utah.
Yeah.
Just so hard, unless you're, especially being a small shop, small business, trying to create something unique and offer value. And it's just, there's so many barriers.
Yeah. And that's what I plan to do with Helixer, right? We're experiencing a little bit of an engineering. It's been a few years now, and I've been in this engineering problem purgatory, but I plan to do that. I don't plan on producing a small batch order here locally. I plan on doing it overseas to save costs, and really trying to tweak things out with an overseas manufacturer, because I don't want to have the problems that you did. And I've seen the problems that you've had.
Oh yeah.
And your hair's gone white since.
Oh yeah.
And it's pretty incredible. So
right.
That's another lesson.
Yeah. I've caused myself way too much stress.
Yeah.
I could have just been easygoing about it.
Right.
Well, I don't know if I'd be easygoing, but I would be focusing more on the marketing and sales aspect, which I actually enjoy. I love that part more than I do actual production. Production is a pain in the ass.
Right.
And I mean, it's a very important part.
Yeah.
But it's not my strong suit.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, no, that's great. That's another great lesson. You want to shift back into dating? Let's just flip flop. Let's go back.
Well, there was something I just want to tell you off, like, this is a side note. My previous engineer that lives in Idaho, he has bandwidth. So if you want his information, I'll send it to you.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's great. Let's do it. I need to get Helixer before it's a dead idea. I'd rather die than that product not come to life. Like, I would rather be homeless. That's going to come to life.
Yeah, it should come to life.
And because I've sacrificed so much.
No, it's not because you sacrificed so much.
I did.
You did, but I'm saying the reason why you bring in the product, because you believe in it and you know it will actually help people.
Right. And that was a big point of contention in my last relationship.
That's a big problem.
And it's one of the reasons that I will never give up on that idea, because I feel like part of the reason that relationship ended was my dedication to my startup.
Well, we should talk on that.
Yeah.
Because if you can't find a woman
that's important. Yeah.
Who doesn't support your vision, your goals, you don't want to be in that type of relationship.
That's a great question. That's a great turn.
Yeah.
What's the balance though?
Because there's always give and take in everything, right?
It's massive, because there's another of our colleagues in the business program I recently ran into. I'm not going to name You know who it is.
Yeah.
And she's starting to have problems with her husband because he's been trying to flirt with various ideas, investing a lot of money. The ideas and the businesses are failing. He's given up on them easily. I don't know the details. Maybe I'm being a little bit more critical, but essentially she's fed up, and she's gone to the point where, I bumped into her and she said, David, at what point do men finally grow up and do what they want to do in life and just focus on that?
Right.
Because you can be that dude that focuses on one thing for just a few months or a year, give up on it, start something else. But in that meantime, your significant other is suffering, right? You're not providing stability as a man.
Right.
And not providing stability and security to this is from a man's perspective, to your woman. That is critical for a relationship. Like, how are you a man at that point?
Yeah, no, those are all.
You have a pair of balls, but how are you a fucking man? You're not providing for your family. You're in this purgatory forever. And so there's a balance where the woman could support you. And I support women in their perspective on this, because if it's something that you're making progress on, and you're focused on, and you're not dilly-dallying with all these different ideas, then you really need to find a woman that supports you. But it's really justified on the woman's part when you're a entrepreneur and you're not getting anywhere and you're just going from one idea to the other. And I did a little bit of that in the beginning. I'm not going to lie. Like, I didn't really understand how focused I needed to be. And I think some of my relationships suffered because of that. But the support, for the most part,
I would agree with that.
Yeah. I've learned a lot, and I've understood how important focus and dedication is, and not being one of those entrepreneurs that just wants to do it for the sake of being an entrepreneur.
I mean, there's something to be said about somebody who's that committed about an idea that they're gonna, I wouldn't say put it above their relationship, but it could jeopardize the relationship because that's how much they believe in it.
Right.
And it takes an incredible partner that actually sees that commitment and goes, fuck, well, I'm going to stand behind this, him or her, to make that.
Isn't that a beautiful thing in a relationship?
It's crazy.
Where a woman, it could be the other way around.
Yeah, right.
But when one of the people in the relationship supports that person when they had nothing.
I mean, it's like,
that's beautiful.
It is.
And then now there's something.
It's crazy beautiful.
And now there's something.
Well, even when when somebody is so focused on the idea that, I don't suggest somebody do this for years, but they're neglecting the relationship a little bit.
Yeah.
And it takes the other partner a little bit more effort to make it come to fruition. And the other partner should say, hey, we need to talk about this, and I'd like some more attention in the relationship. And then that's important too. But if the partner that is supporting the lead partner that's trying to build a business, I think that's probably the most beautiful love that you will see. Like, somebody supporting you in your dream to make something happen.
I recently heard something, read something about, there's only one line in the Bible about how a man should choose a woman. Only one criteria. There's only one sentence in the Bible for that. And it's somebody that is willing to go to war with you.
Right.
There's only one line. And entrepreneurship, in my view, is you're going to war.
It is war.
So if you have a woman by your side,
it's hellacious.
If you have that woman by your side, that can support you while you're going to battle every single day. That's something that's somebody that you need to stick by, that I think that you need to be dedicated to. Because that's so hard to find. And I've seen that, because they can be dedicated to you to a certain extent, but when they start to give up on you, and you're an entrepreneur, you have bigger businesses that are attacking you. Your finances are in turmoil.
Yeah.
You have stresses that no other people that are, that work 9 to 5 don't have. And then when you're the love of your life, when the individual that you're supposed to be with starts giving you hell, that's so critical. It's just like it destroys you.
You're fighting two battles.
Yeah.
battling on two fronts, and nobody wins on two fronts.
Find that woman that's willing to go to war with you. Like that's the person you need to be with. And I think it's beautiful. Like you have situations like Conor McGregor and his wife. She supported him while he was just some chump UFC fighter trying to make it and had big dreams. He's very charismatic. And he worked his way up into the UFC, fighting. You get into that ring, your life is on the line.
Oh yeah.
And she supported him throughout when he was dirt broke. And to this day, they're still together. And I think it's so beautiful.
Yeah.
And I think that that's the kind of woman you need to find. But how many women are out there that want to be with a man when he has nothing? Because right now the narrative says, find the man that has everything. And then that's when you need to be with him. Right. The narrative doesn't say, find a man with good qualities, good character, that's willing to be there for you, and stick by that man and help build him to where you're both in a better situation. That narrative is not expounded and espoused in society.
Well, there's in the what are they, the Mano Swamp, they say that, and I don't think all women are like this, but I think there's certain segment of the population where women just wait at the finish line, pick the winner. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Some. I don't think that's the majority by any means, but
that's the spirit.
There is a narrative out there, amongst women. Whether, I don't think it's big, but there is a narrative out there.
There is, and it's that narrative we just talked about. So having a partner in your life that supports you while you're exploring these entrepreneur ideas is super critical. And we both have seen that. And my last relationship, I'll tell you, I think about some of the conversations that we had where I wasn't given that support. And there was weeks I couldn't sleep at night because it was so important that that person that's closest to me would support me in my ideas. And when I got the indication that I was no longer being supported, it's like you against the world. I mean, it sounds corny, but it's you against the world anyways as an entrepreneur. But when it's you against the world and you against the love of your life, that's even more critical. That's
you start seeing each other as, instead of partners, you see each other as enemies almost.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're warring against that person in a sense, because it's like I have to fight the negative self-talk every fucking day. It's tiring. It's like you have the self-doubts, is this the right thing? Am I doing the right thing? Those are largely where I'm at right now. Those are largely behind me, but
are they?
Well, they still show up, but my biggest negative self-talk was probably, I don't know. I mean, February was the worst month of my entire life. That was a month ago. Mm-hmm. I mean, I was sleeping 4 hours a night. I have a lot of shit going on, a lot of stuff going on in the family, and when you have so many negative self-talk or so many negative, I'm very critical of myself. I could say that. Like, I'm highly critical of myself, and any additional like negativity that shows up in my world only compounds the issue. And I have to fight against that. I have to fight negativity with positivity, and I'm not great I'm not great at it, and
it's 100%. And I think that's the reason why entrepreneurship is so scary.
You have to
have humility. You have to have arrogance. You have to go to war, and you need people in your life to support you. Having those pieces in place is super critical, and it's hard to find. It's hard for all of those pieces to come together at once. And if one of those pieces is missing, it's really hard to succeed.
Well, I think that missing part probably has to step up while you're in the battle. Do you know what I mean? You have to figure out what that is you're not doing. That's the other thing. You can't be taught how to be an entrepreneur. You just have to do.
Yeah.
I think. Like, you can go to school and learn some tricks, I guess, but I think it mostly comes down to your own personal grit
I don't think you can go to school.
Yeah, well,
I just don't believe
like,
that.
yeah,
Either
you are, you're not.
Right?
Right?
The education system and how the route to become, like we talked about, become a lawyer compared to an entrepreneur, they're so vastly different. I don't think that there's much you can learn one for the other.
I mean, the public education system is great for teaching people how to become employees. It is not great at teaching people to think out of the box and be critical thinkers and say, and developing an idea and running with it.
Yeah. But, and I think we talked about this last time, not everybody should be an entrepreneur.
No.
They really shouldn't.
No.
There's this idea.
We need people that are employees.
We do. And there's a lot of people, those 90% of businesses that fail, they should fail.
No, it's great.
People that are spearheading them shouldn't be an entrepreneur.
Right.
Because I've met people that I know, they're just their character, their ambition, the lack of it is just like a telltale sign that they shouldn't be doing this.
Yeah, they have an idea, but they're not going to put it into action.
Right.
Keep the idea, whatever.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
Somebody in 3 months is going to come up with that idea and run with it.
Right. Yeah. Right. Yeah. So it takes a certain kind of person, and it takes all of those other pieces that we talked about.
I agree.
For you to be successful. So relationships are very critical. I think that's the main point of this little digression. What else do you want to talk about?
Well, I want to do this. We already talked about doing this show in multiple locations. Not just
random locations in wilderness and
Bryce Canyon.
We actually traveled a lot.
San Rafael Swell.
Yeah.
Utah's so damn beautiful.
We've been to so many cool places.
I mean, it's the middle of winter. It's cold. Well, it's not the middle.
I mean, we've been to so many. We just got back from San Diego, right?
Yeah. We could do this in San Diego. We could do this in Tijuana.
I just wish we would have done the podcast in these various locations. We went to Europe together.
Yeah.
We went to London, and I was in Lithuania, then I was in Spain. I mean, all these really cool places a lot of people don't get to go. And I look back and I'm like, damn, like going into the clubbing scene, going to the nightlife, interviewing the girls there, getting insights into what their dating habits are, their problems with dating online are. That would have been so great. But in retrospect, fine, we didn't do it. Let's do it now.
Yeah, we can.